So while some have already decided to stay home, others are still hoping to escape the winter. The cost of medical insurance has always been a concern, whether you are traveling for a week, a month, or for the entire winter season. Yorke is broker and owner of Medi-Quote Insurance Brokers, and she joins us now. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning.
So for many Manitobans, getting away for part or all of the winter is part of their lifestyle. As with so many aspects of our lives right now, COVID-19 is, of course, adding an extra layer of logistical cost and monetary cost to this endeavor. Before we leave the province for an extended period of time, what types of insurance should we consider having, COVID or no COVID pandemic?
Well, I think the general consensus out there is that people are looking for COVID coverage. And, if you're going to the U.S., especially the cost of, having a treatment, if you were to be hospitalized or, for whatever reason, is very high. And so, people don't want to leave the country without that. So we are providing that to people. It is available, and it is a bit more costly than what we're used to.
So there is, in fact, a policy which covers COVID-19. What is the cost? Can we ask that?
Well, it's basically dependent on the provider, and each provider is doing something different. Some of the companies that we deal with have come out with their products already, and so we know that they're charging about 10% more. Other companies aren't so forthcoming. They're just adding a surcharge. We don't exactly know what it is, but people are finding that it's more expensive than last year. Manulife is a big provider in Canada, and they are also coming out with a product, and their prices are looking like it's going to be a much higher surcharge than 10%.
So what are we talking about? I know we had someone text us that they paid about $118 for COVID insurance for Puerto Vallarta. That's Mexico. The situation's different in the States. So when you say higher than 10%, are we talking potentially thousands of dollars for COVID insurance, Lori?
Yeah, so if you considered someone who was in their early 60s, which, they might be snowbirds already, if they were going to the U.S. for about 3 months and they weren't super sick, like, people with heart conditions and who've had strokes or whatever often pay a lot higher prices. But if you don't have those conditions, you could expect to pay, maybe $900 each for a 3-month policy.
So obviously the pre-existing condition question comes up, and that can ramp things up significantly. What does that cover? What we've heard some advice in our conversation with Joe Scarpelli earlier this morning, and Snowbird Advocate said to know your policy inside and out. So what sort of questions would you be expecting people to ask in terms of the coverages? Because there must be some things that you would absolutely want to be covered for. What would that list look like, Lori?
Yeah, so basically I would say that people should know what the pre-existing condition coverage is on a policy. They should know what the deductible is. They should know what the maximum is. Because a lot of these companies who are offering COVID coverage are limiting the maximums to, say, like $200,000, which may or may not be enough if you were to be hospitalized. If you just were quite sick and needed to be looked at by a doctor, that might not cost you very much money. But if you were to be hospitalized and in ICU and, that type of a medical requirement, it wouldn't probably cover that. It's hard to know whether it would cover that or not, but it could be a problem. So, your maximum is an important piece, and, whether or not it's covering COVID. And the other thing is that there's a difference between some companies where all they're doing is not excluding COVID versus other companies who are actually providing benefits that are intended to help people that have contracted COVID, other than just hospital visits. So things like, restaurant food delivery, grocery delivery. They're actually, if you are testing positive for COVID and you're away on your trip, you can actually get coverage for those types of expenses, along with taxi rides to COVID testing stations, stuff like that. So little things that they've thought of that are, interesting to travelers if they were to buy a policy.
Lori, we only have about 30 seconds here, but what kind of money would we be looking at, or could we be looking at for, say, like a stay that went over 100 days in the U.S.?
Well, it just really goes up from there, and it's really hard to know because all of the products that we're selling right now are very new to us, and we have different options where we can look through different companies to find the best product and the best price for clients. So it's hard to know, but it just goes up from there, and it can be quite expensive depending on your medical.
Lori Yorke is broker and owner of Medi-Quote Insurance Brokers, joining us live on 680 CJOB. Lori, thank you so much for the time. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.